Today's episode sponsored by Arnold Palmer Spiked. I have to admit, this has become my go-to drink on and off the course, whether I'm trying to get up and down for par or plus the 5% ABV helps calm my nerves on the first tee. Find Arnold Palmer Spiked in a store near you at arnoldpalmerspiked.com/first or search for it on Drizzly and Instacart. That's arnoldpalmerspiked.com/first. 2021 Hornell Brewing Company, Memphis, Tennessee, malt beverage with natural flavor. Celebrate responsibly.
Welcome into the Illini Inquirer podcast, and I won't even get to the football news because there's so much basketball news we have to cover. I guess it's an emergency podcast. Illinois gets a big boost to the backcourt today with two smaller guards, but two guards that can definitely fill it up. Alfonso Plummer is committed to the University of Illinois, Utah transfer guard, who once hit 11 threes in a Pac-12 game, broke Klay Thompson's record. I'll have a great breakdown with Steve Bartle from UteZone.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. And I think Illini fans will be pretty optimistic after what he had to say. But also, Trent Frazier is coming back for a fifth season at the University of Illinois. So all of a sudden, Curbelo, Plummer, and Frazier, that's an explosive offensive duo. Derek Piper, this was a pretty good day for Illinois basketball when you're thinking of what could have been in the backcourt. This is a pretty dangerous, at least offensively, backcourt.
Yeah, it's a nice little Saturday for Brad Underwood and the staff. When you think about, like you said, adding some proven commodities to the high major level. And a couple weeks ago, we sat there and we knew that things still needed to play out, but it looked pretty bleak at the time when Io, which you knew was going to declare, and Adam goes in the transfer portal. And you missed on Armaan Franklin, and all of a sudden, we talked about it on the podcast. You got Curbelo, and we know Hutch is coming back. What is he going to be? But he's really the guy that we know. He's the one known that you have there in the backcourt. So to be able to get Trent back, obviously a guy that started over 100 career games at Illinois and has put up a bunch of points, and two-way impact with him, with what he can do defensively and everything. And now with Io gone, you expect him to step into a bigger role offensively, and we know that he's very capable of that. So there was a good amount of value for Trent to come back, to earn his degree, to be able to chase some of these milestones, climb up the scoring list, and also I'm sure he'll be eyeing that Big Ten Player of the Year and trying to make a push for that. So it'll be good to see him back in the Illini uniform for one more go. And Alfonso Plummer is a nice addition. He's a bucket getter. They profile fairly similarly when you look at Plummer and Frazier as smaller lefties that can really get hot from three. Plummer shot it very well last year. Really, his 2 years at Utah, he was 38% last year, and really in the top echelon. And that relationship, and that was the reason.
Our guard wants to play with Curbelo.
Yeah, hey, how about that? So check that on the side if you haven't already. But he knows that Curbelo can really provide opportunities for him to be successful, and obviously Plummer with his shot making ability can create floor spacing and really help Curbelo as well. So to get those guys, we'd still like another bigger guard, because I know you're not going to start those three together. You just, as far as 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2", whatever they all are, they're below 6'3" collectively. So you need one more, but you do have scoring ability, and you got some guys that have played at the high major level.
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, Derek, Armaan Franklin is here. Right. And you probably taller than Alfonso Plummer, but certainly taller and thicker a little bit. But those options really aren't on the table right now. It's so this staff decided we got to go get a good player that wants to be here. But it also means their style of play is, how do they adjust that? Like, how do these three all play together at the same time in certain stretches? There certainly is enough rotation here, but I mean, Trent can handle the point a little bit. We know he did that early in his career, so he can be a lead guard at times. Alfonso Plummer's a pretty dang good ball handler. He doesn't distribute the ball a lot, but they do fit offensively together, Derek, coming off ball screens and Curbelo setting them up. I just think offensively this could be really good. I just don't know how it works all defensively. And my hypothesis is you got to go land longer guys elsewhere. And that for me would be at the 4. Because if you have Grandison, a long athletic 4, whether that's Coleman Hawkins or one of the transfers, and then an Omar Payne or a Kofi, I feel pretty good about them defensively. But if you have 3 small guards and a guy like, I don't know, if DeMonte Williams came back, that's a small team.
Yeah, for sure. And Brad has talked about when he was speaking on his 2021 class and the need and identifying that they want to get bigger on the wing. Answer that with, particularly defensively, because even if you're in good defensive position, they can just shoot over you or bully you up a little bit. And as Brad said, whenever Kofi's not man in the middle anymore, he took away some of what teams were able to do, even just with that size advantage. Now, Omar Payne is a shot blocker, and I think he's going to be a presence around the rim. So, yeah, I don't know how much we'll see those 3 together. Of course, we still got to see how it plays out. We got to see who else they're able to add, what Miller's decision ultimately is going to be, and then also if there's what Hutch looks like and what DeMonte decides threes. And, yeah, I think that Trent coming back really alleviates the worry about when Curbelo's on the bench or not in the game or for whatever reason who's playing point. I don't think he's like a bad passer by any means. It just hasn't been his game. His assist numbers are way down. Hasn't been a facilitator. He's more so go get you one, catch and shoot. He has a good mid-range pull up as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But I think even if Plummer is your instant offense off the bench and plays 20 minutes a game or whatever that may be, he could be a nice impact there.
No, he can make a huge impact there, and I think that'd be a huge bonus. He was just too good to pass up on for them at this point, right? Especially a team that needs points. I mean, you're losing if Miller does not return, along with Io and potentially Kofi. You just need guys who can get buckets.
Yeah, you do, and you can't wait on Adam right now. And I know the staff has still been in contact there, but they can't assume anything. They had to continue to move on, continue to find quality pieces. They identified Plummer as one of those. And I don't want to – it's easy to compare everything or use the Baylor scale for everything. But one thing I thought of was Adam Flagler as a bench piece who just came in and shot threes and played pretty solid defense. If that's Plummer's role, I mean, that would be more than worth the take and more than worth taking him and figuring it out after that, no matter what Adam does or no matter what else you're able to get. If he can be in that mold for Illinois, that would be a really nice get.
Oh, that's a really good comp, and Illinois should know all about Adam Flagler based on what he did to them back in, what was that, November? So, yeah. All right, Trent Frazier. I am really intrigued to see a 5th year of Trent Frazier. Because we talked about it with Snow, and Snow took a lot of heat for it, but the fit with Io DeSumo didn't know how it was going to work. And to Trent Frazier's credit, he changed his game. He checked the ego at the door, and he let Io kind of be that guy. Andre Curbelo be that guy the last couple of years, and he became more of a catch and shoot guy. We saw it moments though when Io was out. Trent still got it in that golf bag, man, where he can take over a game. I don't know if maybe even we underrate how good he could be as a scorer, especially as a senior, Derek, because it should be opened up more. I mean, Andre Curbelo is going to have the ball in his hands, but so is Trent Frazier. I mean, Trent Frazier basically moves into the Io DeSumo role of I'm the secondary ball handler or maybe the primary ball handler at times. I'm really intrigued to see what this looks like for Trent back in one of the top, I think, 2 scoring roles at guard.
Right. And we have seen it, and it will be interesting to see him tap back into that bucket getter mentality. Because let's be honest, I think that in what he said to us as media, but also just kind of his approach was sometimes taking a back seat, and sometimes offense was encouraged that he was going off the bounce and being a little bit more aggressive, trying to go to the rim. When Iowa was out, they put the ball in his hands and let him do some things in the pick and rolls. And he's capable of that. And I think that when you're in that role and you're able to go into a game knowing I'm getting this volume of shots, and that's just kind of what he's accustomed to, you will probably see that bucket getter, more consistency come out of him in that. So, yeah, I think it will be very intriguing to see how he figures that back out and taps back into that, while also still being that lockdown defender that he really prides himself on being. So I have no doubts that given the volume and given the opportunity that he can go out there and fill it up.
I'm not surprised we haven't heard anything out of this guy because he doesn't like saying much to anyone in our field. Do we know anything about DeMonte Williams? Because we talk about defensively. This could be a nice guy to kind of complement these guys defensively. Obviously can really shoot the three. I mean, you think of next year's team, that's a lot of 3-point shooters, especially if they can find a 4 that can shoot it. Obviously, Austin Hutcherson is a huge X factor here, but DeMonte and Trent are really close. So I'm wondering if this pulls DeMonte one step closer to a return, but we just haven't heard much.
Yeah, and I was going to say the one thing maybe we do know is that his roommate's coming back. that a guy from the same recruiting class and someone, like you said, that he's very close to is coming back and saying, let's do this one more year. And maybe that does push DeMonte towards coming back. And I think that overall what I've heard is he's just been taking his time, and the expectation, and we only know so much as far as being tapped into what these guys are thinking and everything, but the expectation has been that there's a good chance that DeMonte is probably going to come back, and I think that this would probably further that. So we'll have to wait and see what he ultimately wants to do. But, yeah, like you said, again, that's another 3-point shooter, another guy with a lot of experience who, until they find another guard, would probably have a lot of opportunity to be able to play in that backcourt. And I think Grandison's that mix as well, probably playing more at the 3 ideally if you're able to land an impact 4 or a guy that you like and can play a lot of minutes there. But, yeah, DeMonte would be another one with a lot of experience, and as he's shown last year, a pretty nice 3-point stroke.
I would imagine Kofi Coburn declares for the draft. Maybe that's soon. We'll find out. But I think Kofi will go through the process, and I think he'd like to go pro. And who can blame the guy? I mean, and I always say this, he would be 22 years old when the season starts. He's not a young, obviously far from a certainty, and he's obviously the biggest recruit Illinois has on the board right now. But say he's gone, Derek. I think this is really in our pain, but I think you'd be looking at a team that would play differently, right? I mean, Illinois rarely went beyond 7-8 guys the last couple of years. If DeMonte comes back and Trent comes back as like free scholarships, and you have Plummer and Curbelo and these freshmen come in, maybe one of them gets a role. Coleman Hawkins is going to be in that front court rotation. Jacob Grandison, of course. That could be a really interesting team for Brad Underwood, and it would be very interesting to see how maybe they use 9-10 guys. Maybe they ratchet up the pressure a little bit again. There's so many options that are still out there, but I'm just sitting there in my head like that could be an iteration of this team. If Kofi doesn't come back, they add a 4 where you see a lot of guys getting 12+ minutes on this team.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that is something that will be on the table, and of course it will be up to those freshmen coming in, how ready they are. And we've talked about with signing week, it's all in the same week. There's so much going on, man. Podziemski, bucket getter, I think that he could come in and make some shots, and Goody has the frame and can slot in either 3, maybe even spot minutes to the 4 as a freshman if he seems to be ready to go. And yeah, I think style of play, as you bring up, is going to be interesting, and it's something that's still probably up in the air as they mold this roster and get more answers here. But maybe if you're smaller on the perimeter, which I know that they at the outset didn't necessarily want to be going into this offseason and wanted to get bigger, and they do with those freshmen, but maybe you do get more pressure. Maybe you do just do some different things defensively with Payne if he's your 5-man as far as switching, because Brad had mentioned he's a guy that can switch on to really anybody. They feel like with his athleticism and the way that he can move. So that is going to be interesting to see the way that you kind of adapt and do different things there. I still think offensively it's ball screen. There are a number of questions here. Can Coleman Hawkins develop enough physically to play some 5, especially if Kofi's not back? I think that's something to think about. And of course, like you said, Trey Mitchell and Tabwe, whoever else is going to hit the portal as this continues to develop and at the end of the draft process. But back to your original point, I do think, just my read on, I think probably similar to Io, Kofi is going to go into this after being a sophomore and probably say, right now, I think I'm going pro. Like, I think this is going to be it. Now, the feedback could push him back to Illinois, but he's turning 22 in September, and he's going to have an opportunity. I would think, we don't know for sure, but an NBA franchise would probably at least be interested in a two-way contract or just some kind of flyer on him. And is that worth it for him? I don't know, but there was a lot of talk him entering college that it kind of seemed like a two and done type of situation, even if it wasn't a straight line to the NBA, just for him to be able to go make money. And if that's what he wants to do, I couldn't really blame him.
No. And, the name, image, and likeness I think could appeal for Illinois. Like that could be a tool for them, but they just don't know what it's going to be. They just don't know how much they can say. Kofi, you're going to make 50,000, or you can make 20, or you're going to make 153. We just don't buy a Georgie Bishanishvili t-shirt. He's hawking those, man, and I'll buy one probably from him. You caught up with him, right?
Yeah. We had him on the show on Friday, promoting the game day spirit. He's got 2 t-shirts. One is, they're both really cool. One says "amazing" all across the front, and that's his tagline. But also one of his saying, "It's a great day to have a great day." So, gonna miss that dude. We're gonna miss dealing with Georgia, guy that always kept it in.
For media, man. And Adam Miller. I love talking with Adam Miller, who speaks like a 25-year-old NBA veteran already. We still got Dre. Curbelo is fantastic with us. Trent and DeMonte are hard to crack sometimes. Trent's a well-coached interviewee, and DeMonte.
We at least know the deal. He has his moments where he opens up a little bit, but for the most part, he's not a big fan. Yeah,
it's kind of a fun game. I guess if you like being challenged, like Lovey, man, he was a challenge, but once you got something out of him, it was like, yeah, it was a big win. Big win.
True. I did laugh when back in the old days when we used to go to Oven and get a chance to interview people in person, and those that would try to request DeMonte and his different tactics for not being able to come out and talk to us. Those were always entertaining. But
do you think Derek Burson sweated more when Georgie actually did interviews because you never knew what he was going to say, or when somebody requested DeMonte and he had to go approach DeMonte?
It was probably Georgie. I don't think I have ever seen DB more nervous the first time we talked to Georgie.
Yeah.
And DB probably doesn't have the expectation. He knows he's going to go back
already, and we're barely a month into it, right? Like we're not even a month into it. Obviously, attrition could still happen throughout this offseason, but if Illinois could have an ideal end to this, if they have an open scholarship or two, I think 4-man would probably be the number one priority, right? And then if they can get a big-bodied guard, I would imagine that's got to be the other spot.
Yep, absolutely. 4-man is going to be at the top of the list right now in terms of trying to find an impact guy there who come in and probably in their mind they would hope to be a starter. I think Coleman Hawkins will be in that mix as well. I don't see them wanting to start Jacob Grandison at the 4 ideally if you're able to go out and get someone that has a little bit more traditional size front court as the 4 and the 5. I don't know. Well, we'll see how that plays out. Trey Mitchell's situation with his former coach and who is with his mom and trying to find a job there, that's all got to play out. And Joel and Tabwe is one that they are very interested in as well, formerly at UNLV and Texas Tech, and they're involved with that one as well. So someone at the 4, and then either Miller back or another guard. And well, it'll be interesting to see what other names kind of pop up at guard here as they play out. Some of them have come off the board here of late. One that we do know is Jalen Pickett out of Siena, who is a very good playmaking guard that can do some things with the ball in his hands. Good passer, and can also shoot it a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's but I do think with college basketball, Derek, we've seen this huge initial wave, right? I think some people are assuming it's going to be like college football where there's a second wave. I don't know if that's the case? Because there'll be trickles coming in, but college football, I think after spring ball, there's another big wave of guys that go, okay, I don't have a spot here. Let's see where we can go. Do you see a second wave here of college basketball transfers? Like I'm skeptical of that, but I don't know if I'm off base.
I mean, for as big as the first wave has been, it's hard to imagine how big of a secondary one there could. Yeah. There will be another form of it, but how big it actually will materialize into, I don't know. I don't think it will be something wild again, but who knows? I know that at times there's players that would rather wait till the end of the semester and maybe not have to deal with being on campus after saying they're gone and all that deal. Maybe there's some of that. I do think there is something to be said for those that go to the draft and then find out they're not going to stay in and don't want to go back to where they were at. I think that is going to pop up a handful, but it's not going to be like, here's another 20 options on Illinois' board within the span of a couple of weeks. So I don't think that is the case, but there are still some moving pieces and still some dominoes that could fall here.
Catch your breath, Derek? You got some time to catch your breath?
I don't know.
It's nuts, man. It's been a nuts off season already, and I haven't even done a football podcast. We're gonna have to do that one at some point with 2 new commits this week as well. Well, Derek, coming up next, we're gonna talk with Steve Bartle from the Ute Zone. Fantastic breakdown coming up next, but appreciate the time, man.
As always, man. It's always fun.
All right, next, let's get some great insight from Steve Bartle, utezone.com, part of the 24/7 Sports crew. He's covered Alfonso Plummer the last couple years. What is Alfonso Plummer bringing to the University of Illinois? I think you'll like what Steve has to say next.
From work that deserve to be celebrated. And I've been celebrating my wins with Arnold Palmer Spiked. That classic iced tea and lemonade combination just hits right and now has 5% ABV, which makes even the bad days on the course a little more enjoyable. Sometimes the swing gets a little loose. As weather warms up, I've been spending a lot more time outside, and having these handy has certainly been a win for me. Find Arnold Palmer Spiked in a store near you at
Nickelodeon's podcast celebrating all things Avatarverse.
Whether you're a bender or a non-bender, everybody's welcome, even if you're not from the Fire Nation.
Listen to Avatar Braving the Elements on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Will you go penguin sledding with me?
Welcome back into the Illini Inquirer podcast, and let's get to know a little bit about the Illini's latest addition to their roster. Utah transfer guard Alfonso Plummer was really good. Scored his 2 years there after transferring in from JUCO. And Steve Bartle from 24/7 Sports covers Utah and the Utes for us. And Steve, can you kind of take me back first about getting Alfonso Plummer, a JUCO guard, that seemed to work out pretty well for Utah. So what went into them getting him and landing him?
Yeah, he was kind of an interesting recruitment with Alfonso Plummer. He kind of came from a JUCO in Arizona, and not a lot of people were really on him. And at the time, Utah's roster really needed some shooting. Just desperately needed shooting. They had lost Cedric Bearfield and Parker Van Dyke, 2 guards that were, capable scorers who graduated and moved on from the program. And so Larry Kraskowiak and his staff just, kind of scoured the market and identified Alfonso Plummer. I want to say it's like Arizona West or something like that. I can't remember the exact junior college, but he had made a number of 3-pointers throughout his career there. I think he played 2 seasons there. And that is exactly what led Utah to bringing him in. And Utah, again, they needed shooting at the time. And it took Alfonso Plummer some time to acclimate to the different level. But, throughout his 2 seasons, he proved to be the shooter that Utah was hoping he would be. And so that's kind of what it all boiled down to. He was a nice find, and with Utah's ties, they had hired Henry Martinez at the time, who was a coach with connections throughout, Central and South America. and that was kind of a connection for Alfonso Plummer and Henry Martinez. That was really, really helpful, and Alfonso Plummer coming to Utah as well. So, yeah, that's kind of how it all came to be. Utah, again, just kind of needed some shooting, and they identified Alfonso Plummer as a very capable shooter. He was above 40% throughout his career. And
players, Illinois certainly got a pipeline going now, and they add to that with Alfonso Plummer, with Orlando Antigua, their assistant. But you said it, Steve. I mean, he was a very effective three.
Well, most of his offense comes from spot-up opportunities, catch-and-shoot opportunities. And, you know, that's going to be the big thing for him. He's capable of shooting effectively coming off of screens. He can catch, dribble, and pull up off of the dribble as well. If you give him just a little bit of space, he's going to be able to get a shot off. He's got a quick release. He gets, you know, for being a guy that's 6'1", he gets really good elevation on his jumper as well. So, you know, he's able to get his shot off. But really, a lot of his offense, again, comes from, you know, spot-up opportunities where other guys are going to be able to create and find him. And that's where a lot of his shots came from, coming off screens.
Basically just catch and shoot threes with him. What else does he bring offensively?
Yeah, so, I mean, his role at Utah was to shoot the ball. Utah needed his scoring punch because they didn't have a lot throughout the rest of the roster. They had some young, talented pieces, but any time you're dealing with true freshmen and you need to rely on them to be scorers, you know, at this level of basketball, it's going to be tough. So he was basically told, like, look, man, if you've got a shot, take it. And, you know, it's not that he was just taking and hucking shots. There were some games where he took, you know, some bad shots, as every shooter is going to do. But, you know, he has the ability. He's not strictly a catch and shoot guy. He's got very good quickness. He's got good athleticism overall, and he can handle the ball. He's not a point guard by any means, but he understands how to get guys the ball, making timely passes in pick and roll situations. He just wasn't utilized in that way a whole lot. But in the few opportunities that he had, he showed that he can make plays, either getting to the rim with a nice little floater or a layup, or dumping it off to the roll man or to the pick and pop guy. You know, he's shown the ability to handle pick and roll situations fairly well. So he is a capable playmaker. I wouldn't count on him for any more than maybe 2 or 3 assists a night, but you know, he's got it in his game. It's just his usage at Utah was primarily his shooting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he doesn't turn it over, even though he's got that high usage. So he doesn't turn it over very often. So that's a good sign. Okay, so Illinois has a small backcourt coming back. Andre Curbelo, Trent Frazier announced he's coming back for another year. Both those guys under 6'2". Alfonso Plummer is as well. What does he bring defensively? Because that could be an issue with Illinois with 3 smaller guards next year.
Yeah. Defensive, kind of quiet the concerns with his ability on the defensive end. He's tough. He's built well. He's not for playing a physical brand of basketball. He'll be able to handle that well. He's not very long, so he may only be able to defend the smaller guys on the floor and that kind of stuff. But he's quick and he's mindful of passing lanes and that kind of thing. He didn't average, a lot of assists, but he's able. He had some opportunities where he was able to get deflections in the passing lane, get out into transition opportunities, and that kind of stuff. So, I think for him, he's not a liability. I would not call him a liability at all. But I wouldn't necessarily call him somebody that I wouldn't put him on a top playmaker or anything like that. But he's not somebody that you really have to worry about. He'll do the job, but I would not count on him to shut people down or get a stop when you need it. But he's got the tools that you want in a player to compete on the defensive end, that can make plays on the defensive end and that kind of thing. It's just, he's not very versatile in the type of players that he's going to be able to defend just because of, his size, his lack of length, and that kind of stuff. But, he can be effective if, with the right guys around him.
Steve, before I let you go, and really appreciate your time and insight on Alfonso Plummer, can you take me to this final game of the 2020 season when he made 11 threes against Oregon State in the Pac-12 tournament? I know they didn't win. They ended up losing 71-69, but 11 of 16 from three for 35 points. What was that game like?
Dude, it was wild. It was the craziest experience watching that game, and you brought it up, and I immediately remember watching it and where I was watching it, because it was so surreal. It was crazy watching him just go off. And it wasn't just that was the big game. He set the record. He he overtook Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson of the Golden State Warriors. He broke his record for 3-point makes. That says a lot about that performance, and it was crazy. Utah lost the game. Unfortunately, Oregon State made a great comeback and won the game. But that performance from Alfonso Plummer, it was nuts. And he didn't have any record-shattering performance after that, but he had a couple games. There was a game this past year against Colorado in Boulder, Colorado. Utah was down, oh gosh, what were they down? They were down 18, I want to say, 18 or 20 with about 8 minutes to go, and Alfonso caught on fire and shot Utah back into the game. They won that game. It was the most, it wasn't just that he got hot from three. He was able to get to the rim. He was able to find guys and create scoring opportunities for other guys. Like it was probably his best performance that we saw from him in that jersey, which is saying something considering the record-breaking performance he had in that Pac-12 tournament 2 years ago. But that performance against Colorado in Boulder was probably his best overall game, just because he was relied on to be the second primary scorer, and I don't know that he has the efficiency to be that type of guy. But where he can be a third, fourth option, I think that that's a great fit for him, and I think that's really going to help his game next year. So it's certainly interesting to see his play, in Champaign and see how he's going to fit there. But if you're a Fighting Illini fan, I think there's plenty of reason to be optimistic about what he brings to the table. There will certainly be some exciting times, and that's kind of the key thing here is you're getting a dude that can fill it up in moments, and when he gets hot, he gets really, really hot.
Great stuff. Steve Bartle, Utah, 24/7 Sports, Ute Zone. You can visit him there, 247sports.com/college/Utah. Steve, incredible breakdown, man. Really appreciate the time.
Yeah, no problem, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on, man.
Great stuff from Steve Bartle, utezone.com, part of the 24/7 Sports crew there. All right. We covered the basketball side of it on the podcast, and you can check out all the content. I'm sorry, there's so much up there right now. Hopefully you can get through all of it, and we'll probably tweet this out over the next couple of days. Illini targets, so go check that out. Ian Pugh is the kid in Fenwick that Ryan was seeing. So if you missed those, really good insight into those players as well as their recruit. Caught up with him, the Rochester wide receiver. I caught up with Rochester coach Derek Leonard about him as well. So we got all of that stuff coming up to the site. Plus, we have a spring game on Monday, and we got previews ready for that as well. So keep it tuned to IlliniInquirer.com for all of that. You can also right now just get VIP access for your first month for just $1 or your first year for 30% off. So all the access to all of this is right there. We also appreciate you listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. Give us a follow wherever you get us, Spotify, Apple Store, wherever you get your podcast, Stitcher. We appreciate when you do that. Rate us, review us. That helps us out as well. A good day this Saturday for Illini sports and athletics is basketball adds 2 big guards or 2 scoring guards, and Illinois adds an in-state commit, the first in the class 2022 with Hank Beatty. We'll break that down coming up in a podcast later. I thought basketball was enough to cover for today. Everybody have a great rest of the weekend. We will see you maybe at the spring game. Enjoy that. Safe travels if you're going to make it down to that game. If you're making it to the spring game, that's a good one to listen to for that. All right, everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time on the Illini Inquirer podcast.
The beautiful game is our game. Welcome to Attacking Third, a soccer podcast from CBS Sports covering the NWSL, U.S. Women's National Team, and more. I'm Lisa Roman. Alongside my co-host Sandra Herrera, we'll bring you episodes 3 times a week featuring previews, recaps, and exclusive interviews. Download and follow Attacking Third wherever podcasts are found.